Hello everybody. How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody's having a good week so far and that it's not too rainy where you are. It's been off and on here, but dry today, so hoping to get outside and get some more gardening done after we are live. I will just pull things up here on my end. Hey Audrey, how are you? It looks like everything should be good if I can see that there's somebody there watching. And just make sure I'm pulling up the right one. I just about pulled up yesterday's video. That won't do me good to follow along with. Hi Ramona. How are you doing? Hopefully it's not too crooked there for you guys. Okay, so we are back with day 2 of Seaside Wishes. And I have another card in the same color palette to create for you guys today. And I have hi Linda, a different technique to show you guys. So I'm excited about this. It's a little messy. I should have maybe printed a new host code here, but just excuse the ink that's all over there and we'll have some fun stamping. I am Alana Worf, Sleepless Stamper. I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba in Canada. And I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. So the Seaside Wishes bundle is a product that Stampin' Up! Offers. And I will just show this to you. I actually still have one die taped down to my sheet. So we are working with this stamp set here, Seaside Wishes, and the coordinating hybrid die and embossing folder. So we have these coordinating dies that go with the images here, and then we also have the embossing folder that you can run through with the die and add texture to your projects or to your paper while you cut it. So I'm actually going to do that feature today. But I have a fun technique to do first. So I will show you guys the materials and then we will get started. I'll show this to you up close here first. Now, you might remember that I did a technique yesterday where I tinted the enamel effects. I had this little die cut left over, so I'm going to use that. I don't know if I'll ink today's or the one that I'm going to make for you guys now the same way, but I will add one into there. So I have first the Pretty Peacock card base. This is 4 1/4 by 11. I'm going to move yesterday's card out of the way. And then I have a 3 7/8 by 4 1/4 crumb cake layer. And then I have a layer of, this actually does not need to be so big. I just need a scrap of it to go behind here. And then I need a scrap of old olive to go behind the crumb cake. So there's just a little bit of an accent of old olive, so I don't need that big of a piece. You just need like 1/2 inch strips by 4 1/4 and a 1/2 inch strip by 4. All right, then I am going to cut a piece of the same paper that I used yesterday, the Winter Meadow I want to call it. Let me just see if that's what it's actually called, Winter Meadow. So I'm going to cut a piece of this, whoopsie, drop some paper, this paper off with you guys. I'm just going to pick up this DSP that I set down and let it fall right behind me. It's got a precious piece of vellum in there, so we don't want that to get ruined. So I will cut the piece that I need there. I also have a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 basic white that I'm going to do a technique to here for you guys. So I'll bring this a little closer. You can see the different colors and texture in that paper that I have die cut those sand dollars, I almost called them seashells, with. And then I'm going to use some of that same paper for stamping the starfishes. I always want to call them a seahorse. I also have another element of, we have some more of this these little twigs, or they're actually little elements that go with cheerful daisies. So I have used that and pre-die cut some DSP, I just call them sprigs. That is from, I'll show you guys again, I showed you yesterday, but just in case you are new to watching today, this piece of paper from the Thoughtful Journey DSP. So we're going to use some of that again to die cut this little element there. I also have, again, I can never resist this thing here, the silver, just because it's just such a good greeting. So I have that as well, and then some linen thread and some flat pearls. All right, so let's get started with the, whoopsie, things are just blowing off the table here. I do have the fan on in here again, and so it's making things fall off the table. Excuse me while I just cut myself one more piece of paper. All right, so have any of you, I also have these 2 pieces of basic white. I'm going to add those to my stack. Hi, Robin and Kelly, and I'm not too sure, Malak. I hope I say that properly. I hope you don't mind me trying, and if you can correct me if I'm wrong, please do. I don't mind being corrected, so I say it properly. Now I'm going to cut a piece here that is 4 by 4, and I'm just trying to decide, do I want this portion or this portion? I think I'm going to go with this one here. So I'm just going to take this edge and move this over to the 4 inches. I've been trying to conserve my paper, so I try not to just slice a whole row off. And then that way I can also show you guys how to make the best use out of your DSP. All right, so we have this piece here. I'll set that aside, and I'm going to just move these aside too. This next part could get a little bit messy. And I'm just going to grab my paper towel so it's handy. So for this next part, I've actually pre-mixed these, but I will explain how to do this. And have any of you ever tried bubble stamping? So there's bubble wrap stamping, but this is bubble stamping. So what you do, this started off obviously with nothing in the bowl. I put some clear dish soap. So just the bottom of the bowl is maybe like this. So I just put it in the bottom of the bowl, and then I dropped in 6 drops of re-inker. You can do more or less depending on how bold you want the little bubbles to be. So I also have the same with Old Olive. So I put some Old Olive or the soap in the bottom of the bowl. Hi, Melissa. How are you doing? Are you back from vacation? And then I added in the re-inker. You mix it up. I feel like I need to show you guys. Does explaining it suffice, or do you guys want me to grab a bowl and actually show you? If you guys want me to show you, I'm happy to do that. I have tons in here that I can use, but I feel like I should just show you. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to grab a bowl and actually show you guys how to do this. Okay, so Ryan's on it for me. Sorry guys for leaving you there, but I feel like it will be better if I just show you than try to explain. I am working on a reel. Hopefully I can make that work. I'm not avid in reels whatsoever, but I'm gonna give it a try. So I did shoot some stuff with my video on my phone, trying to see if I could get a reel put together on this for you guys. So it'll just be a minute until he can bring me another bowl. He's got the hallway blocked off, keeping Ruby, because she keeps scratching on the door. She wants in here with me. That's our dog, if you're new and haven't been around to hear who Ruby is. And thank you, Robin, about the design. I sometimes just keep playing until it comes together. I had done the technique first and wasn't sure from there what I was going to do. So I just played around until it turned into something. Okay, so I have a bowl. So you don't have to use a glass bowl. That's just what I had. It was nice and clear for trying to take a photo and then showing you guys. So this, I'm just going to use clear dish soap. I didn't want to use tinted like blue dish soap just in case. Maybe it would be fine, but I didn't want that to affect my re-inker. So just a little bit to cover the bottom. Whoa. I just about knocked the water all over the place. I am going to mix Old Olive instead of, I already have 2 bowls of Pretty Peacock. So we're gonna do another Old Olive. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the amount I put in there. I need to clean out those lids. I have a straw that I am going to use to just mix this up. Looks kind of yucky at this stage of the game, but bear with me. So you just mix that together. It doesn't have to be fully mixed. I'm going to move my card for a second. I don't want this to get all over the card. And then I'm just going to pour some water in there. Extra reason to have the door closed. You don't want the cat coming in here with that water and any of this anywhere. She would happily make paw prints all over the place, I'm sure. So I'm just mixing that up. There we go. And I'm going to move some of these aside. Sorry for my reach there for a second. Now I have my paper handy. This is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It can be smaller if you want it to be smaller. It can be larger if you want it to be larger. Like if you wanted to do a whole sheet of this at once, you could do that. Now, bear with me. I'm going to just blow through the straw so that the bubbles come all the way out of the top of the bowl. So you can see that there. And then you just take your paper. This is just basic white. It's not watercolor. And just pop the bubbles. So you can start to see that there are some little bubble patterns forming. And then we're just going to keep doing that process. And then just pop them some more. You can dip the edges in. Now, if you get the bubbles that are smaller and more clustered, you will get bigger chunks of ink. So if you don't want that look, avoid that. You can also pop that, and then you can see the formation of that circle there from the bubble. So we'll do this a few more times. So just blow through the straw, create some bubbles. They need to come out of the top of the bowl. I did see where somebody had said they put the bubbles on the paper. So maybe you could scoop them off and then put them on the paper. There's a mosquito in here, sorry. The mosquitoes here are terrible. I don't know where all of you, let me know where you're watching from. But they've been horrible here. So I just want a little bit of that green on every part of the paper. And these ones here, those are going to create a neat little, so let's just pop those. Look at that. I love that. That's so neat how that that pattern formed there. And then I'm going to do a little bit more for this corner. There we go. And then I just kind of tipped the corner into the bowl to get a little bit more there. Okay, so now I'm just going to wipe this off. Wipe off this water that just went off the edge. I'm all done with Old Olive. Now I am going to try some Pretty Peacock on the same piece of paper. And then I have a bunch of samples I'll show you guys after as well. Samples of paper, not full cards. Isn't that cool? Okay. And then I just kind of direct it all over the paper. See, there we go. Now you get like a neat two-toned effect. You have done this technique before, Linda. So fun. Anyone else, have you ever tried this? You could do so many different color palettes. I think I'll do Pretty Peacock again. This mat is glossy, the one that I'm working on. So if you want to protect your work surface, you could always use, you just do it on your glass mat too, but there we go. That's probably good for the color, or do I want to add more? I'll do one more pretty peacock. How about that? Has anyone else tried this technique? I feel like I did a long time ago. It kind of reminds me of the shaving cream technique. So Linda, did you do yours the same way, or did you scoop the bubbles and place them on the card? I actually did do that on one piece of paper. I used, I'll show you, so I think it's actually still on the table here. Maybe I moved it. I don't know where it is, but oh, right here. I did scoop some out with this palette and then try to get them on the paper, but they of course cling to the palette, and I didn't want to smush them on there and create a palette mark. So I was just a little careful to try to just dab them onto there. But I think it creates a super cool effect. And I'd love to know if anyone else has tried this, and what color combos did you guys do? I was trying to think of what other types of cards would look good with this type of technique. But there you go. It's almost like pattern paper, but that's just basic white and then some clear dish soap mixed with re-inker and water, and then you blow the bubbles and just place your paper all over the bubbles, and it pops them and then deposits that pattern onto your paper. So hopefully that is something new for you guys today. Or hopefully you've already been having fun with it. Now I have another piece of paper. I was going to do two, but I have enough lots here. This is another one that I did earlier. So I have that one there. I am going to save these ones. This one I did both colors in just a pattern across. I think this would be super cool with some sort of sea life on there. This one is just Pretty Peacock. This is the one where I scooped the bubbles. So you can see where those small clusters of bubbles, the foam from them, really just colored the sides. But I do kind of like how that turned out as well. This one was also just Pretty Peacock. I love this one. This reminds me of, I think it was Artistically Inked. We had that swatch that came with that one. That and this one both remind me of that. And then I did another full background. It was so hard to decide which ones to save to do a technique with, or like to make a background with, and which ones to stamp with or die cut from. And then I did one where I embossed it with the, gosh, I can't remember what it's called, Waves maybe, but one of the new embossing folders. So I just want to make sure this is dry, and my heat gun's not plugged in, so 1 second. So I'm just going to dry this. If it's wet, it would still die cut, but the design will likely be a little softer. And if it's dry, it will hold that better, the texture, when I run it through with the hybrid die and embossing folder. Any suggestions on color palettes or stamp sets to try this technique with? Let me know. So now what I'm going to do is take this die. This is the outline that you can tuck in to this embossing folder here. So you just line it up with the front, and you can kind of feel when it has, you can see there, it's in place, and I'm trying to move that there, and it just kind of holds place there. Now I can take my piece of paper, there we are, and I'll run this through my, hi Louise, I'm going to run this through the Stamp Cut and Emboss machine. So I will leave you guys there for just 1 second, and I'm going to just run this through rather than bringing this clunky thing over there. I am going to just do this off camera. Now the trick would be, there it is, I was going to say if I can find my gray plate, but it was right beside the machine. Usually when it's right in front of your face, you can't see it, whatever the item is, right? Okay, so here we go. I love this part. So now this awesome tool has cut and embossed these little sand dollars all in one go. So there we go. We have these really cute, multicolored, bubbly, textured sand dollars. I love how those turn out. All right, so we're going to set these aside. I will bring the card back in now and just place my die aside. I used the large one and the middle-sized one. So those are the two that I'm going to use. I'll set this one aside, and who knows, it might make a reappearance this week. We'll have to see. Hi, Cindy, how are you? All right, now I also need both of the starfish, and I actually stamped them. I didn't want them on stark white, so I stamped them on some of this paper that I have already done the technique to. So I'm going to do that with Pretty Peacock. I think that's what I used yesterday. I'll bring yesterday's card in for you guys too, and we'll just stamp that one there. I love the look of these in Pretty Peacock. I will have to choose some other color schemes as well, but I do really like Pretty Peacock. I think it's my favorite color. How about you guys? What's your favorite color? All right, so now we want to die cut these, and I have actually put those back on the sheet. So we're going to tape these down. And I don't think that looks right. Let's see. Maybe that is right. I think that was right. I should mark them in some way. If you have any tips for that. I don't know that that's quite right. That doesn't look quite right. So you gotta just sometimes just go around and around. There we go. You can tell when it is correct. All right. It's been kind of a fun day around here. Lennon is our younger son, and both of our boys have done musical theater. And in school, it's a class, but they still have to audition for what roles. So they're finished up their year. He wrote his last exam on Monday. And the last thing he had to do, they audition at the end of one term for the musical that is the next term. So when they go back in the fall, they're going to be doing Matilda, and he auditioned today for whatever, he'll find out whatever role he'll have in the fall. So we were making a ribbon wand for his audition. It was fun. Okay, so I'm gonna just quickly go and die cut these. I just have it right behind here. So, oh, that one moved. That's what I get for doing it off camera, right? Save clunking that whole thing in here. So hopefully, oh, you know what? I have to do one at a time. I stamped them a little bit too close. So I'll be back in 1 second for that. How many of you have this bundle? Does anybody have this one? I know I have at least one customer that does. Some of you may have heard us talk about our virtual sale that we do at the end of every catalog. And one of the vendors used her sale credit and got this bundle. Sadly, when she bought it, it was not, like both pieces weren't available. So she missed out on the bundle price, and it wasn't yet June. So we didn't have the 10% off. You do have it. Awesome. If you decide to try any of these, let me know. It is such an honor when people are inspired to create something that we have shared. So I love hearing those stories. Somebody commented on one of my posts the other day that we inspire not just our customers, but other demos too. And I love that. So, and Robin, I think you had shared that I was doing a live, and that meant so much to me. So thank you. All right, we have that. And then I have one more, and I actually will bring in the mini machine for this one. This one's not so clunky. So I still need to do this little element here. And I am going to I just need to cut this piece down. It is too wide to go through this machine. So we're going to just trim this piece down. I feel like 2 inches is going to be too narrow. No, it should work. So let's see. It'll be tight, but it'll work. So I will trim this down to 2 inches first, and then we will roll that through. All right. So we're gonna just put that on there, put this die. So I'm not gonna ink today's. Yesterday's got the mixture of the silver enamel effects mixed with Pretty Peacock ink daubered onto it. You can see that there. It's the shimmery, darker tone, but that's okay. We're just gonna go with this standard one for today, or for this card. And in case you have this one, let's see if my trick, it's one of these little dots right along one of these 2 dips. So let's see which one it is. Okay, it's the other one. One of these little, or so I thought. Where did it go? Maybe it's the other size, because there's 2 of these. There we go. It's the one right in the corner. The one that I didn't do first. So we can just pop these out. I love that this actually die cuts all of those little details pretty nicely. And then to get rid of everything in here, if you have the die brush tip, this is actually the old die brush tip, but if you have the die brush tip for your take your pick tool, if you are newer to Stampin' Up! And don't have this, you can just push out all of those little pieces so that you're good to go for the next one without having to poke each of them out with a piercer. That's a lot of little pieces to have to poke out with a piercer. So the die brush tip on that one is amazing. Okay, got all those little things out of the way. Now let's just take stock of what we have to make sure we have everything, and then we can assemble. So I've got some of these little sprigs. So we've got the sprigs, we have this little element here, we have the sand dollars, we have both of the starfish, and then we have our other layers here. So I do have a little bit more stamping though to do. I am going to tear the edge of this. So I want to make sure that I have my 4 1/4 wide, and then on the bottom I am going to tear an edge. One thing you can do if your hands have a hard time tearing, I'll give you guys a little tip. You can take your water painter and you can just go over the line where you want to tear a few times, and that will soften the fibers, making it easier to tear. I like to hold my paper on both sides when I'm tearing. I don't want to just rip it, but whatever preference you have or what your hands can manage. So softening that a little bit with your aqua painter first can help. Oh, Cindy, you have it too. Awesome. Hi, Sonia and Brenda. So that's the edge of one. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this piece here. So this one started off as 4 by 4, and we may as well just do the same thing on this one. So just make sure that you have a little bit of water in there. There we are. It's kind of like, here's another tip for you if you've never tried it. If you ever have to send mail, I'm sure we all do, we send cards in the mail, you can use your aqua painter to wet the envelope flap so that you don't have to lick it. Hopefully that saves you guys from having to lick envelopes. I do that all the time. I do not ever lick envelopes anymore. I always use an aqua painter, and that is how I moisten an envelope to seal it. Okay, so we have these two elements here, but you can see here I stamped along the bottom of this one, so I'm going to do that. And then I also put a little bit of Old Olive. I found they weren't standing out enough from each other, so I actually, that one's too narrow. This one should be good for both. Let's see. Let me just check to see if this is wider than 4 1/4. It is not. This piece might be. No, this one will do for that there. And this one is not wide enough in either direction. So I'm gonna just grab another piece of old olive. Of course, the big piece that I would pick is not actually wide enough, but I have lots of scraps. So I did actually thin out my scraps, but I usually have little strips, so that will do. So I'm going to cut this at 4 1/4. All right, so that one's cut at 4 1/4, and then this one here, I will just trim the edge off. I'll glue it onto here and trim the edge off. So first, I want to stamp the bottom of this piece here. That is with this little sandy looking element from the stamp set. And I'm going to stamp that one in crumb cake. And I'm stamping it over the torn edge. And then you can just kind of rotate to fill that in. You can stamp the same direction if you want, but sometimes I find it doesn't look as organic if you do that. And I'm stamping more than will be seen, but then that way it will all be filled in. There we go. So that's the bottom there. And then I also stamped the top only, and just close this one, of the card base. It looked a little plain and I wasn't sure I wanted it perfectly symmetrical. So I left the bottom, but I actually combined all 3 of these pebble images onto one block. So I just laid them face down on my mat so that they were as close as they could be, so that there's very little gap between them. And then I picked them up with my block. So I laid them out and picked them up with my block. Now I'll use Pretty Peacock. I'm gonna get this guy out of the way. And this is going to go, my card is folded and the fold is at the top. I should have checked first. I was pretty certain it was, but so the fold is at the top. And I am going to just keep filling in with this little pebbled image. There we go. So that's enough for the top. I don't need to do the whole card front because it's just that little top portion that is peeking out there. And I'm going to just wipe up the ink that is on my table before I go any further. Otherwise, I will get that all over my card pieces. Again, this is a glossy laminated mat, so it can just wipe right off. All right, so now I need to add, got to figure out which one was the 4 1/4 after all that, not this one. I piled them all up together. This one's even wider. I piled them all up together and messed that up. Okay, what I'm going to do though, before I glue that on, I'm going to bring back in my Pretty Peacock and I'm going to just tap the flat edges just to give a slightly outlined edge. So this is just tapping. I'm not dragging because I don't want to damage my ink pads. So there's just a very slight border on there now. Whoops, that blew a sticky note right in there. And I'm going to do the same thing with the flat edges of this DSP. I love when they give us a patterned, fairly solid image on one side that we can use for whatever we need it for. It's like, this is Christmas paper, but it's great with this. Now, was this the 4 1/4? Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to just put a little bit of glue on the back of this one here. And you just need a thin bead. You do not want to use a lot. It will squish out and make a mess. So Tombow gives you a moment of wiggle room. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this one. So this is going on the straight edge. And this one I will need to trim a little bit off the side because I didn't trim it straight down to the proper width first. So part of our fun that we had today was Lennon was helping me after he got back from his audition, because the younger people, they know how to do this real stuff, right? So he was helping me. In the end, he didn't really have to help much, but I also haven't finished the reel yet, so we'll see. Hopefully it will make sense, and you guys will have to watch it and tell me if it makes sense in reel form, just like if as much sense as it did here by watching the whole thing. Hopefully that'll work out. So I'm just going to go trim the edge off here. I don't know where I put my little trimmer. Oh, it's right here underneath that piece of DSP that fell. I picked up the DSP and put it on top of the trimmer and hid it. So I'm just pushing that DSP back to the cut line. There we go. And I can see I'm a little over on this side, so I'll just trim that off too. I need to flip this over and do it this way. Sometimes if you have just a little hair to trim off and it's only part of it, it's easier to put that part closer to the blade arm. There we go. See, that took it right off. The little, I just didn't go over far enough. I was afraid to cut my DSP off. There we go. So the closer to the blade arm, the better when you have just a portion to trim off. Now, I took this and I glued it with the torn edge towards the bottom. So I'm going to glue it like that, and it's okay that I didn't stamp right here because this is going to cover that. So, whoopsie. Go ahead and glue this down. What type of glue fan are you guys? Do you use them all in different ways? I tend to. I do not use just one type of adhesive. I use them all for different things. Now this one is also going to get glued down, and I'm going to tear and tape this one because it's overlapping this edge and I just don't want it to lift off. So I'm going to use some tear and tape. I feel like Edward Scissorhands when I have these on my fingers ready to go. Does anyone know that movie? It was around when we were kids. I loved that movie. Probably because he used his Edward Scissorhands and he went around pruning bushes and things like that to look so pretty. And that is right up a crafter's alley. At least I find it is. Are you guys into like pretty florals and things like that as well? And do you find like a topiary or the weeping willow trees? They just look so satisfying to me. There's a few down our street. I'd actually love to get one. Okay, so that is the base. And now we're just going to dry fit all of these elements to get them in position to where we want. And so I went off the edges a little bit. Don't feel like you have to have everything squished into the middle of your card. So that looks okay there. So I'm going to just grab all my different adhesives, my different dimensionals, and get all this ready. So I'm going to start with this one. Now, I'm not going to peel all the backing. So you guys have seen me do this probably a million times. Can you use the tape for pictures? Yes, you can. I believe, I should double check that it is acid free, but I believe it is. But that's a perfectly good question, and I will find out the answer to that. We are coming out with a lot more scrapbooking products, I believe, like just with, not coming out with a lot more scrapbooking products. We have seen a lot more scrapbooking done with our products. So it is, and then of course there's like some access to some of the Close to My Heart product. So this one I did not peel. I just want to mention that because I want to be able to tuck this into there. So with more and more scrapbooking being done, that is a good question to have the answer to. So I'm actually just going to move that up because I did not put that so far down. So I'm going to find out for sure. It might even say in the catalog, but I'll check and find out. I'm glad you asked that. It'll hold them. It's just whether or not it is certified as safe to do so without compromising your photos. Okay, so now this one, I'm gonna just put some dimensionals where it's going to touch the paper. Again, I'm not putting one at the top where this little element here is gonna go. So that one's just overlapping a little bit. And now this one, oh look, I did stick that little dimensional. I'm gonna tuck it in there after. I did put that a little too close after I said not to. So this one's gonna go just with a little glue dot in the middle. And then I can just tuck this in here. And I like to see this little split in there. I think it adds a little character. So we're gonna tuck that there. Now I can take this little dimensional and stick that back down. There we go. So now we're good with that. And I'm gonna pick some of these. I'm not so crazy about this one that's very yellow, so I'm gonna move that one and not use it. I have a dimensional backing in my hair. The fan is just blowing them around. Now this one here, I am also going to just, I wanna make sure I don't have any dimensionals in the way. This one is going to tuck just right in there. I don't want it quite so long though, so I'm actually gonna trim this bottom part off. I don't want it sticking up above this one, so I'm just gonna snip the end off, put a tiny little glue dot at the stem here, and then I can reach that in, and then I can stick that, peel the backing off the dimensional that's near the top there that I showed you guys. So now this one can go in there, and now I can reach in here and peel that backing off. There we go. Now this, I actually snipped these apart too. I found that, oh my goodness, this one has some of the stuff from yesterday, the mixture that I made with the silver enamel effects, and I don't want that one so bold. I don't want it yellow like this one. That's too yellow. Well, let's see. We'll just use it. How about that? It'll be good. It's fine. But I did snip these apart, so just snip that off, and then I'm going to snip this little bit off right back here, and then I can snip them apart, and it just lets me nestle them in a little bit better. So don't be afraid to snip things apart if they're not quite what you want them to be. Now, because I already have some dimensionals in there, it makes it easier to tuck them in, but it also makes it easier for me to layer them the way I want them to be. So I might need to just lift that up some, and I'm just gonna tuck that under there. And then I can take this one. Let's say you preferred rotating them. You could also, I kept them in the same order, but I could have switched which order they went in if I wanted to. That mosquito. If you are in the Manitoba area, are the mosquitoes terrible where you are as well? They are horrible in the city. I know not all areas of the city have them as bad, but I've heard that St. James and Charleswood are horrible, and we're in St. James, and they are no fun. All right, so that is all of these main elements. I'm gonna just, there we go, wing that guy out a little bit more. Now, this one here, I put about right there. That is attached with just a single mini dimensional in the middle. And that's gonna go right there. And then my little one is gonna go on another mini dimensional. There we are. So just put it in the center and angle it where it is not going to be seen. And then I just put it on the edge of the sand dollar. Now our just because is gonna go right along here. Now, what I just noticed is I have angled this sand dollar a little bit too much. So I'm just gonna wiggle that. I did rip that a little bit, but we're gonna just stick a glue dot. You won't see that once we put all this on. And it's so textured, you can't really tell. I angled this one a little bit too far up, which made the just because more centered than I wanted it. So there, I should have done a little dry fit first, but that's better. Now, this can go just right across here. So I'll get that ready with some dimensionals as well. These are just the minis. They're a perfect fit behind this just because, and I hope you guys don't mind me using this just because on a regular basis, but I just love it. And when the greetings that are in the set don't fit the layout as well as I'd like them to sometimes, I look for something else. But because it's a week-long series, I try not to use a greeting from another set, but I can use a die cut because I can still give that to you guys. I can't stamp anything for you, but I can provide a die cut. So it's a safe way to switch out the greeting from the set that I'm featuring. Because sometimes you guys will place an order because you already have the bundle and you want to be able to get the card kit. So this way I can still give that to you. All right, now linen thread. You guys know my signature linen thread bow or white baker's twine bow. They are an easy go-to for me if we ever don't have linen thread. I don't know what I'd do. I guess I'd survive because I didn't know what I would do without vellum, and I've made it so far. So now I will just tuck that in, cinch that back a bit. And I usually tell you guys, when you're cinching back the loops, just hold the knot and the loops flat between your fingers and cinch back that way. That helps keep everything flat and helps prevent those loops from twisting when you are cinching back the bows. It's like frustrating when you've gone to the trouble of tying a bow, especially if you're somebody that doesn't love tying them, to have a nice bow and then have it twist on you when you get to that final stage. So that should hopefully help. Now I missed tucking that through, so I can just find a spot between the dimensionals and pull that little tail through. I do that often. There we go. So that is the bow, and now I have one last step. I need to add some gems. So I went ahead with just 2 today. I only used 2 yesterday as well. I did not follow the odd numbers rule, but sometimes I will treat my bow like the 3rd or the odd number, and that still forms a triangle. So it'll work, right? And I don't want to use the full sheet. I have a partial sheet that is right here. So we're going to go with the partial sheet. You guys saw yesterday, what did I have? 4 packages of the gems I used yesterday on the go. So we'll try to finish up one before I do another. Let's see if this one's still sticky. It's not, but we're going to add a glue dot and we'll make it work. And this will maybe let me show you guys a tip too. So if that ever happens and it has lost its adhesive disc on the back, you can just put it on a glue dot, but the glue dot is a little bigger than, hey Marcia, the glue dot is a little bigger than the gem. So just take this, I don't know if you can see there, the glue dot is sticking over, and just fold the glue dot onto the back. That way now it's not too big. You just want to tuck those little parts behind there because we have a black cat and nobody wants black cat hair stuck to that. So now it is fitting behind there. And I'm just putting them in the center. I can actually, of the little starfish. There we go. And they do have like a little oblong. They're not all the same shape. Or are they? No, they look to be different. So I try not to have them pointing the same direction. I try to give it a little bit more interest by, like, one is angling that way and then the other one, it looks more round. So hopefully that gives you guys a tip too. How are you, Marcia? All right, so that is card number 2. I will quickly bring back in card number 1. I guess I did have it here at the beginning. I forgot about that. One of them is still off to the other side of the room, so I was forgetting I'd already brought that one in. But same color palette, but 2 very different techniques. Yesterday's was the tinted silver enamel effects, tinted with the Pretty Peacock re-inker, and then today's was this bubble stamping or bubble technique. So hopefully that gives you guys some different ideas to use. If you try any of them, please do let me know. I love to hear what you guys go forward and create with. So if you would like to earn this week's kits in Canada, you can place an order on my website with this host code of $65, and that will earn you the supplies to make this week's cards. Anything die cut and the layers. Thank you so much, Linda. Marcia, I'm glad you're doing good. So it'll earn you all of the paper supplies, die cuts, embellishments. I just can't do any stamping for you. So if you really love the stamp set, you can consider that being part of your $65 purchase. Or if you already have it, you are welcome to order other stuff. Or if you already have it and you're here for inspiration, that's great too. I love being able to help give you guys tips and techniques to try and to see how you guys go forward and create with them. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow. One of these days I'll do 2 projects instead of 1. I just will try to pick a couple of simpler projects for the day that I do 2. And I will have an order going in as well. So if you're local and you don't want to order online, you can let me know. And then just let me know that it is to qualify for the Seaside Wishes kits. All right. So wish me luck on that reel. I hope that I can finish it off and have it work. I don't know that I've done one that is a technique. I have done a few. I've done a couple artisan box unboxing reels. And then I know I have done a couple of gifts I've been making for like team appreciation or team on stage gifts, but I don't know if I've actually done a technique one. So it's time I try. But anyhow, once I get it done, I will share it and you guys can let me know what you think. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you guys all have a good night and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.